Welcome to the Perfect Place to Put a Practice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Green with Dr. Demographics. Today we're going to expand on one of my favorite topics, and that is finding those hidden gem locations for starting or expanding your professional practice. So if you are looking to start that new one, or if you are looking at that second, third, fourth location or 50th location, finding those hidden gems is really the magic when it comes to the work we do here at Dr. Demographics. Those under the radar spots that are really found all over the country, spots typically where the competition's low, population growth is steady or exploding, demographics align with strong demand, and usually there's a provider shortage. Those are all the reasons that usually create a hidden gem location. You know, everybody flocks to the obvious hot spots like major metros, big cities, all the names in the cities that you've heard of. But sometimes the smartest moves happen when places that are otherwise overlooked, counties, smaller cities, edge suburban areas, all those areas that have all those markers for being a hidden gem. So why focus on those hidden gems? In crowded markets, you can burn through your marketing dollars just to get your name and your logo noticed. A true hidden gem, patient acquisition ramps up quicker. Word of mouth spreads naturally and faster. Rent, so your overhead, your rents, and your staffing typically is below average. And you position yourself as the go-to provider early. You've heard me talk so many times about being the first person to plant your flag in a mountain. That is such a critical part of understanding and saturating yourself as the primary provider in an area. So let's talk specifically about what signals for us on the data side, what signals a hidden gem location. There's really 5 things that we look at. Number 1, we look at fairly quiet but consistent population growth. So a lot of times they're not the ones that are making the big top 10 lists or in national publications, are not the ones that news organizations are talking about. They're ones that are quietly but consistently growing. And usually that's caused by people moving into the area through an employer, or honestly, since COVID, it's people moving out of a bigger city because they can work from home or have some kind of remote capability with their employment. Second thing is just underserved areas, lower numbers of providers per capita than national averages. This is just basic math, right? If there's too many people and not enough providers, and when they call to get a dental appointment, they have to wait weeks and weeks, a lot of times, obviously, that marks a underserved area and one that you can jump in that definitely qualifies as a hidden gem. The third one is favorable demographics. Now, you don't want to go to an area that is dead, so to speak. You don't want to go to an area that does not have the demographics that are matching what it is that you want to do as a provider. So if you're into geriatric care and there's a bunch of young families, it's probably not the right place for you. It wouldn't be a hidden gem. But typically we're looking at areas that have new growth, new blood into it. So that's maybe young families or a growing middle class, or even retirees with insurance and elective needs. All of those things can raise a flag to say, hey, this area has a favorable demographic for a type of provider that may not exist currently. So again, if it's a geriatric group and that particular population is growing really strong, then there's not a prosthodontist in town. That may be one of the things that signals for a hidden gem location. So the fourth thing has economic momentum. So we're seeing new housing. We're seeing the job sector expanding. We're seeing the proximity to bigger hub areas more accessible through new highways or other development that's happening. Those are all things that showcase momentum in a particular area that signals that it's probably a hidden gem. And the fifth is that there's typically entry advantages. There's affordable commercial space that's just sitting there. There's fewer competition, and there's room to grow. So there's actual land that's available in that area for expansion. Those are markers. Those 5 things are markers that indicate a hidden gem location, a possible hidden gem location when we look at the data. So I wanted to give you a couple of suggestions. Let's see, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 areas that are hidden gems right now. Now, they might not necessarily be a hidden gem for you. If you're an optometrist, if you're a vet, maybe that's not exactly these areas are not, but generally these areas in the country are what we consider for right now, as the time of this recording, hidden gem locations that maybe not a lot of people are looking at. So the first one is Kaufman County in Texas. So it's near Dallas, so explosive growth from Dallas. Some of the Dallas overflow. So again, these are areas that post-COVID we've seen a lot of people moving to because they're moving out of Dallas. Has some of the fastest population increases in the country. And the interesting thing is the population increase has not so far kicked off the unaffordable land, the unaffordable building space that typically happens. So typically when the population increases, the developers see that as, okay, now everything's going to start getting expensive. We're in one of those really special times right now, kind of a nexus time where the population is growing, but that affordability for land and commercial space is still really, really good. And frankly, the competition, in our opinion, is still lagging behind that boom. And so, in other words, the population growth is outpacing the providers that are available in Kaufman County. So that's number one. Okay, let's go a little bit north. As a matter of fact, let's go north of Atlanta to Dawson County, Georgia. Rapid suburban expansion with family-oriented demographics and strong housing growth. Again, this is another area that post-COVID we've seen a ton of people moving to. Why? Because they've either moved out of the New York City area or they've moved out of the Atlanta area, and they still need to be connected to those two areas because of airports and work and employment and all those things, but they can live in that more suburban area. So again, very underserved, lots of underserved pockets in that area, very great people, loyal patient base if you can get in there. Awesome, especially for a general dentist or for an optometrist in that area. Okay, number 3 is Liberty County, Texas. So this is the Houston area. Energy corridor growth. Man, I've talked about Houston before. If you go back about maybe 10 or 12 episodes, we did an episode on the Houston area and all of the amazing things that are happening in Houston right now. There's going to be, over the next 5 or 10 years, a tremendous amount of money and growth going into the greater Houston area that is going to explode that area with growth. And Houston, obviously, it's a big metro area, but Houston is an area, again, that is just going to see so much expansion over the next 5 or 10 years. If you're a provider and you can put up with the Texas heat and Texas sounds appealing to you, don't sleep on Liberty County. It's a great option. Definitely going to be an area that is going to start being on a lot of people's lists. They've been on my list for a little while, but the rest of the world is going to catch up fairly soon. Okay, let's go to Pinal County in Arizona. So this is the Phoenix spillover area, massive availability with land. Migration is happening there. There's a ton of growth. There's shortage areas, especially in several parts of that county. Lots of opportunities, especially if you're a vet. We didn't want to talk about vets a ton on this podcast, but if you're a vet, that area is fantastic for you. Okay, next option. Just the rural Midwest. I don't have a specific county, but just that rural Midwest plains pockets. There's so many of them in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri. They have a ton of shortages in those flyover areas that other providers just have not caught up with yet, and so they have a lot of opportunity. And then the last one would just say the Mountain West outliers. Of course, there's a lot of people that look at Idaho and Montana, and the populations are just not there. But if you're wanting to escape higher price areas such as California and Oregon and even Washington, some of those areas are still kind of in the same area of the country, but will offer tremendous growth, very, very stable populations, good income, and excellent loyal patients. So don't skip on those areas. There's lots of them in Idaho, several in Montana. And again, we can have a conversation that kind of walks you through that a little bit more. So again, we're looking at areas that have shortages of providers, and there is a ton. Even in Texas, Florida, California, even though those states are always on everybody's maps, there are pockets in each of those states that are very appealing and quite frankly underserved because the population growth has been so fast that the providers have not kept up with it. And even areas like Mississippi, Arkansas, or West Virginia, which again are not on a lot of people's lists, but there are spots in that area that if that part of the country appeals to you, can be quite appealing to open a practice there. So how do you find them? So if you're after looking for a hidden gem location and you're just standing back from the map and saying, "Hey, I'm happy to practice anywhere," how do you find that? Well, obviously it's a combination of local knowledge and demographic data and psychographic data, and combining those all together and finding that sweet spot that's going to be right for you, making sure that it's an area that you're going to be successful in. So making sure that the demographic mix, the psychographic mix, works really well and is going to support the type of practice that you want, and also great local knowledge. And so how that process works typically is we start with you at Dr. Demographics. Typically we'll do a best sites report. From that report, then you'll take it to a real estate professional in your area that can show you some actually brick and mortar or some raw ground. And then we come back in with the site viability report to make sure that everything checks out before you put ink on paper. So quick caution, when you're looking at hidden gem areas, obviously the stakes are a little higher because there could be a couple of market indicators that are really strong and a couple that are absolute no-goes. And so before you take that risk, you definitely want to talk to somebody that has the knowledge, both in a broad sense with the demographics and also in a local way with your real estate person, to make sure that that is going to line up exactly for what you're looking for. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Hopefully that will show you how to find those hidden gem locations. You can find out more about this and so much more by going to drdemographics.com. If you'd like to have a conversation about this, you're welcome to give us a call at 844-704-0499 or shoot me an email at mike@drdemographics.com. With that, hopefully that was helpful. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode.